It's Friday. It's 3 o'clock. That means another expert restaurant roundup. I've got a guy that knows a little bit about not doing it alone. This is my man, Matt from Canada, north of the border. Another fellow, Matt. We're going to talk for about 15, 20 minutes about what it takes to run your restaurant, leading teams, employee retention, finding employees, and a bunch of important facts like that. Way above my pay grade, but this Matt knows about it. See you in a minute. So we got double Matts. We got the Matt that knows marketing. We got the Matt that knows what to do when the people from the marketing walk in the restaurant.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. How do we tie the two together, right? You'll fill the restaurant, and once we get them there, how do we give them an experience that makes them happy? A
so Matt,
experience I heard recently.
Tell everybody who you are.
So my name is Matt Rolfe. I'm a hospitality leadership coach. I've spent my entire career, which I'm getting older now, so coming up on 22 years in the hospitality industry. I spend 4 days a week in boardrooms like this, coaching leaders and leadership teams to try to get, number one, their plans right, their people right, and how to actually execute a plan. So not just create strategy, but execute strategy. And we spend a lot of our time right now on retention, attraction, and employee engagement.
And you wrote this, right?
Yeah. We started writing the book pre-pandemic, which is exciting for us. I wish that we had it published for the pandemic because it would have been helpful to operators as they were closed. But the exciting thing for me is that COVID didn't create a lot of the issues we're facing today. It just magnified pre-existing issues. So the concepts in the book are more relevant than when we wrote it with our publisher.
Yep.
Current in the middle of the second book, so we hope to get that out as soon as we can into 2023. But yeah, the idea is you can't do it alone. The biggest pattern I see in high-performing leaders is at a certain point they bottleneck themselves. So we don't have people around us that can believe what we believe in our vision and support it in the execution, then we can actually stunt the growth. And I speak from experiences. I did that to my own companies. And I think we look at what's the unlock. So how do we free up the leaders to do what they do best to guide their businesses forward?
And that's one of the biggest takeaways for me, that when you look at this book and you're talking about developing and scaling, and by the way, people get the book, get it online. Is it on westshorehospitalitygroup.com?
It's on mattrolfe.com. Yeah, so Matt, ROLFE.com. That's our coaching page. So Matt Rolfe coaching website. You can get it there, or on Amazon. You'll be able to find it.
Okay. So make sure you find, if you get it on Amazon, leave a review. Tell everybody how awesome the book is, how awesome the strategies are. But the one thing, like you just said a minute ago, is reflective of everything. I think that it's kind of like a football game where I always hate it. Like I was at a Bears game, the Bears playoff game, like 4 years ago, I think it was 2019 maybe, when the kicker missed the field goal, they lost the game. And like walking out of the stadium, everybody's wanting to kill the kicker, screw him, cut him, trade him. Like, guys, did you forget the other like 59 minutes of where the other players didn't get enough points? And I kind of look at the same thing with restaurants with regards to the pandemic. It wasn't that the pandemic sprung something new on. It just highlighted a lot of the negatives that it was pushing them over the edge. Like I talked to a couple food reps about, local food companies that, they had to go to cash in advance when that hit, because they had so many clients that were 30 to 60 days out on their invoices. They were letting slide. And then when there was no income for 2-3 weeks, that restaurants didn't have the money. And I look at the same thing with the employment. I hear a lot of people saying, people don't want to work. There's nobody out there. And I'm like, well, I think obviously it's wrong. These people just didn't all of a sudden go open a spaceship and go away from the world. They don't want to work in the environment that you've put in front of them, or you haven't attracted the right type of people. And I know we're going to talk about some of those topics today. And one of the things that you said off air about, talking about retaining employees, but also having the right ones, because I think that's the biggest danger right now, is that for people who are struggling to find people, that they're just taking anybody, and sometimes anybody's not the right way, right?
No, not at all. And I think like everyone watching, this live stream and this podcast, right? We look at your brand, right? People are attracted to work around you based on your beliefs and your focus, right? People come towards you. If a restaurant is just hiring based on absolute necessity, it's very dangerous. And what we've looked at in the data, and I encourage you, if you're a restaurant, if you're experiencing turnovers, find out when it's happening. For most operators, the bulk of their turnover, so average restaurant operators experience over 200% annual staff turnover. It's happening inside of the first 45 to 100 days. So it means people don't even get started. So your core is staying. The people that believe you, like your restaurant and what it's been there, they're with you pre-pandemic, but we're flooding people through this revolving door that we're not looking at a solution. And then we're talking about attraction or retention issues. The reality is we're not putting the right people in the system, or we have a broken culture or capacity inside the operation that we need to give attention. My fear for operators is we continue to attract. They're out there. They're just not in your restaurant. And I say that respectfully, but we have strategies to help you. But how do we get them in your restaurant? But most importantly, how do we get them to stay? And we got to do the right avatar out front. But most importantly, we got to give them the right experience when they get there.
And I think the right experience, not that I know the right experience comes from the right messaging, comes from the person that's putting it out there. Because my team a couple weeks ago, one of my guys came back from me on the road with the van shooting the show. And they said, man, this one road we were on this week was exactly what you talk about. So what do you mean? He goes, well, we went to one restaurant and everything was negative. You can't find employees, food prices, this, that, the other, and the owner's attitude trickled to the managers, trickled to the employees. And one of my guys was actually telling me like how one of the kitchen staff was critiquing something he was doing because it was part of the culture. Like everybody was just, he said it was a really weird environment. He said, then they literally got in the van, went a couple miles down the street to another restaurant, and it was a complete opposite. The owner's like, oh my gosh, glad you're here. Things are awesome. He's like, Matt, it was weird. He's like, and the cool thing that really showed me was that it resonated through the staff. The negative resonated, the positive resonated. And the one thing I look at a lot with that is that's obvious. Like I told one of my sales guys about 6 months ago when we record everything they do. And I do it to watch their mannerisms. And when somebody says something they don't agree with or like, you can see their face drop.
Yeah.
Because when they say no in the sales presentation, you can see their face drop. And I'm like, dude, that's a killer right there. And it's the same in the restaurant. That you're trying to hire employees and people walk in there and they get the vibe that the world's going to end and you're desperate for them to be there. No matter if they can do the job or not, then you're going to get the wrong damn people.
And I couldn't agree more. Like the one thing we work on, I've spent a lot of time with Tony Robbins, and I think there's a couple core messages, but one that stuck with me is Tony says 70% of our results are driven by our physical state. And I got a chance to meet with him with 2 other people for an extended period of time a few years ago, and he really, really pushed it. And my side is, what is the state and energy you're bringing in your restaurant? Like, how are you showing up, even before you use words? As a coach, I'm watching body language before I'm watching what you publish and share. Because often we're saying what we want people to hear, but in a coaching session, the bulk of my coaching work is done around watching physical cues to see where somebody's really at. But when it comes to like, is somebody walking in your restaurant in this dark cloud, or are we walking in and saying, it's going to be a fight, it's going to be scrappy, but someone has to win. Somebody always wins in transitions like this, the financial crash, prohibition, the pandemic. In every major city in North America, there's going to be these entrepreneurial groups that are going to thrive in this environment, and they're going to thrive because they choose to, with relentless focus and commitment to what they want to achieve. And I know that sounds ranty, and some people might think it sounds a bit woo-woo, but you're doing it with your team, right? You have belief, absolute belief in your messaging and where you're going to go. My side is it starts with leadership and it trickles down. What's the consistent message, and why should people buy into what you're looking to do? They can go work at any restaurant that you want. Why should they work for you? And are you giving them attention?
And it's the environment's so huge. It's kind of funny when I'm sitting in my office, like right in this last week, it's kind of chilly down here in Northern Kentucky. So I've been rocking my MP sweatpants and my MP hoodie and my Air Jordans. And I had a job interview. I think it was yesterday or day before. It was yesterday. And my director of ops, Ashley, sitting in my office, and we're sitting there talking, and she sees this guy pull up because my big glass window, you see the cars, and he gets out and he's got like a suit on. She's like, who's this guy? I'm like, oh, he's here for an interview. Well, that's even funny as shit. Like, he's walking into here. You're going to walk out. I didn't have my shoes on. You're going to walk out with no shoes on, with pizza socks, with sweatpants and a sweatshirt on. This guy's in a suit with polished shoes. I'm like, hey, he'll figure out real quickly how we do it. And I hear that a lot when people come here and leave here. I've had friends of mine call me and say, hey, a buddy of mine interviewed at your place today. He didn't know I knew you, but he called me to talk about this. The place he went, and he came in, and there's hip hop playing, and there's people playing ping pong, and there's guys drinking Red Bull and crushing cans. It's just a different environment. Yeah. I feel like that's what a lot of these restaurants don't realize. and I don't say it's a lot of restaurants, I've seen a lot of businesses.
Yep, for sure.
Because I've been in a lot of businesses that those things are outwardly obvious. I had a restaurant 2 weeks ago that is a absolute perfect fit for our business. I mean, scale of 1 to 10, they are a 10 and they need us. And they currently have a marketing company that I know that are doing not a good job. And it's funny about digital marketing is it's pretty obvious. You can look at emails, texts, posts, or you can look at everything and see like, nothing's happening. Like Papa John's, 6.7 million fans on their page, and they get 100 reactions to a Facebook post. Somebody should be fired.
Yeah.
They don't get 100,000 reactions. They got a problem. Well, this guy's emailed back to me after we met a couple of times. So, we're based on the current president. I haven't heard this one in like 2 years. Based on the current president and the economic environment, we're gonna hold tight. We're gonna kind of pull the reins in and hold tight and see if we can weather the storm. And I'm like, if that's your attitude towards trying to attack the problem, number one, I feel sorry for you because your employees all feel it, and it's going to trickle down to them and their attitude, and they're going to talk to their friends, and their friends are going to talk to their friends, and it's going to resonate with hiring, with sales, with everything. Whereas other restaurants, like guys like, hey, more millionaires, more zeros are added to incomes in recessions than ever. If you're looking at a problem versus a solution, you already just lost.
And the thing that there's a section in the book that talks about, are you playing to win or are you playing not to lose? And I want to say, are you playing to win or are you playing not to lose? And my coach said that to me about 8 years ago, and I've never been more offended in my life. He just triggered the crap out of me. I was like, hey man, I'm working 70 hours a week. He said, but you're not playing the right game. Like, you have an opportunity in front of you, but for a restaurant, if someone's going to win, and it's a choice of state and belief. And I do feel that Q1 of 2023 will be one of the hardest quarters our industry has faced throughout what is this still present pandemic for cash flow wise. Like, people, I think there's cash flow concerns that are going to really show up in Q1 and part of Q2 next year. So we got to fight, and it's a choice, but let's play to win, whatever that looks like for you, on your people, on your experience, on your digital presence. Big brands can choose to claw back and hold. It's a choice, but I think it's very, very risky now when your offer is an ROI based offer. I'm digging in every one of my clients. I have a return on investment offer. Who's going to come to you and say, I can turn $1 into 10? Anybody right now can turn $1 into a staff member, a manager, a menu option, whatever that is, or $1 into 2, depending on what you're looking at. But we have to look at the opportunities to play to win right now.
I found it. Chapter 5, page 119. Are you playing to win or simply playing not to lose? And that second paragraph, next page, talks about you're playing it safe. And I think a lot of businesses look at that. They think they're being safe and they're accepting defeat. They're accepting failure. I was talking to my financial investor yesterday. I called him to talk about some other stuff, and he was asking some business questions. I said, I came to the conclusion, we come up with a strategy how we're going to split our companies into 2, and we're going to do a raise, and our goal is 1.2 million next first quarter to raise money to grow the road show and the show aspect and the marketing. And he said, I have no doubt you'll get it. And I go, I know I'll get it. And he goes, I know, because your mindset isn't an option not to get it. And I just, it pains me when I talk to restaurant owners, because I talked to one the other day, it's put 40 years into this restaurant. And they've got a great product. They've got a great restaurant. They've put 40 years of hard work into it. And I think sometimes people just they don't get out of their own environment enough. The only people they talk to are the people that work for them every day. And they're not around the Matt Rolfes of the world. They're not here having conversations. Like you said, that our results are being driven by our physical state. Like, that's a deep quote. And that comes from a deep person. And if you're in a group with 50 people that are talking about that at a conference, then you're going to have a different mindset. And I think that a lot of times what I see is that other mindset, the opposite side of that, the people that are playing not to lose, are because they're hearing woe is me. They're hearing negative. They're not around the right people. Like, if I would have called my financial guy, Bryce, yesterday and told him what I was doing, he'd have said, man, I don't know, this economy, your business, he would have said that. I mean, that it would have just resonated with me. But everybody I talk to, I've surrounded myself intentionally with people that are freaking winners.
Yep. And it's a mindset choice. And I think it's one of the biggest opportunities when it comes To link this back to retention, someone's walking into your restaurant every day that on average is short 20% of your staff. They're walking to an environment where 2 out of 10 bodies are missing to properly service the restaurant in an ideal situation. So if the state's not right, the message's not right, the vision that, hey, it's going to be hard for the holidays. Yeah, we're in October. Holidays aren't far from November, mid-November, we start holiday season, but we have a plan, but we're going to do this. Like we're in it together. We have each other's backs. There's benefit in it. And you have to control that messaging. And yes, are there going to be hard times and bad days? We all have them. But when we have more people collectively rowing in the direction of the goals of the business, then we can create results. And I know this might sound a bit ranty to me, but I believe in this shit. Like this is a choice. And I love our industry. And I'm terrified for people that choose to play safe and what happens in that business, because I care about them, not because I'm, anything else. I don't want to see anybody who doesn't need to lose their business or their job in our industry. And the way to recover is not accepting average. It's pursuing, why should your restaurant exist? Why does your community need it? Because we don't need more restaurants. What's the experience you're going to consistently create outside the restaurant marketing, inside the restaurant experience? And let's relentlessly and consistently track that on a daily basis. And when we do that, great things happen. Simplicity, executed consistently.
Let me give you an example. I want your feedback, see what you think. Tell me if I'm crazy or if you agree, and I think you'll agree. So next week, a friend of mine who I coach is a realtor, high-powered, awesome realtor, and he's got a conference in Las Vegas for eXp Realty. Well, I'm going with him, and I'm going with him. I'm taking my cameraman. We're helping him film some stuff, but I'm going because I'm like, yeah, there's going to be a couple thousand. If people are spending money to go to an event like that, it's the right people. The people who aren't going to the event are the ones that are saying, oh, I'm broke, I can't afford it. The people that are spending $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 to go to this event are the right people. And my goal was I needed about 3 or 4 days of a refresher. I need to figure out a couple of things in my mind. And I'm like, if I can get away from the office and I can go be in a room with that energy versus I have great energy here versus other opportunities like in restaurants. If you're a restaurant owner, go to the trade show, go to the event, go somewhere. What do you think about that?
And I've learned this from experience. So one thing I've learned with my energy as an entrepreneur and leader is I need to be in a room with like-minded leaders on a quarterly basis, no matter, and I have to negotiate with my partner who's in another room over here, spend a lot of money on development. But I need that energy for myself, and I encourage us. That's why we do live events. And as much as you can get experience from the speaker at the front of the room, how do you put yourself in a room with like-minded people that we're looking at what's possible, not what's in the way? Like we all have challenges right now, personally and professionally. Life's hard for many of us, and hard. I don't think hard's bad. Hard's just hard. But how do I surround with myself with people? And that's why we're doing our live events. But what we're launching is peer groups for the restaurant industry, and we'll talk about that more. The official launch will be January 2023. There's test groups going up now. We're putting like-minded hospitality leaders in groups of 20 that are connecting on a monthly basis.
Like 20 groups.
20 groups, like groups of 20. The challenge is, and Matt, here's the funny thing. Why does every other industry have peer groups but hospitality? Every other industry.
I haven't figured out. It's funny you say I had a guy this morning. I had a guy texted me last night at about 10:45. He had heard me on a podcast with David Scott Peters and said, and I put my phone number out there all the time. People say, hey, how to get a hold of me? Here's my cell phone number. And he texted me last night. I got up this morning. I didn't text him at 5 a.m. when I got up because I don't know if he's up or not. So I texted him about 7 a.m. And I said, hey, let me know when you'll hop on a call. We'll see what you got going and see if I can help. And we got on a call, and he brings up, because, there's this thing I wish there was in the restaurant space. I've not seen them, and maybe you know of them. I've heard of these things called 20 groups. I see that comes from the car business from Spader 20. We used to be an RV dealership. We were in a 20 group. It's pretty intense, and it's pretty intense, and it's a great way to grow. But you're right. That's awesome that you're doing it. I'll have to share this episode with him so he can hear it, because being in a room with, 19 other restaurant owners like you that are a fast casual chicken place across the United States, and you can look and go, okay, you're doing 3 million in sales. I'm doing 3 million, but you're making 200 grand more. Share.
Yeah. It's that like-minded sharing of the industry. And that's, we have this competitive mindset. And I hope the pandemic allowed us to step back and say, I'm not going to share my secret sauce. I might not necessarily share my P&L, but there's common practices. What we look for as coaches is, what are the patterns that are leading to success in today's market? Success leaves clues. Find the pattern, execute the pattern. And the challenge is where people, as a coach, I need to earn trust. When you can sit across from a peer and just learn from them. Like, and again, you'll go to a real estate conference in Vegas where there's thousands of real estate agents every month for different conferences that are there, or insurance brokers or entrepreneurs flying into Vegas or flying into LA or whatever market. What we're just trying to do is how do we capture the collective power of peer? And right now it's just making sure that we're sharing enough so people see a path through what the capacity challenges that the operators have been facing and continue to face. Because if we want to successfully operate restaurants, we need people to do it with us. We can't just push through this. I think a lot of operators are redlined, so we need to need people to buy into what we're doing and how we're going to execute.
Yeah, I think your group idea comes back to the title of your book. You can't do it alone, and a lot of us, I'm guilty of that. I carry a lot of things internally that I'm trying to hold in. That I've got to run the company. And I realize I have to externalize those and reach out for help and have people to talk to. But one thing that brings me back to it, I was involved in 20 groups 20 years ago. And I remember we were in the Yamaha Symposium 20. I don't know if I've talked about this or not, but we were the number 3 Yamaha outboard motor dealer in the United States out of like 2,800. And they had the Symposium 20 where they would fly the top 20 dealers every quarter to a different, it was always casino city, Shreveport, Louisiana, Vegas, Atlantic City. And we would go in for 5 days. And the concept of it was a little different than a traditional 20 group. Was we would do a deep dive into what all of us were doing successfully, because they knew all of us would get great stuff from each other, but they were creating a guide, and they would then take that and disperse that to the other 2,780 Yamaha dealers that weren't in a room and say, hey, this is what the top dealers are doing: parts, accessories, marketing, sales, like everything. And that's how I cut my teeth in digital marketing. I was the first person in the 20 group back in 02, 03, 04 using this thing called digital marketing. Like we used to get our hand slapped because Yamaha, we were the number 3 dealer because we were selling a third of our engines across the United States on the internet because nobody else was. And we were doing it for people were paying more than they could have paid at the local dealer. So we didn't get in trouble, but we were revolutionizing selling motors how we were and boats across the country. But I'll never forget one thing that really hit me though at one point when I saw it, was that you're taking the top 20 and you're trying to tell this dealer that's number 2,850, like, this is what the top 20 are doing. He can't resonate with the top 20. He's way the hell down the line. That's like me, when I was in kindergarten, like watching, Michael Jordan dunk and trying to figure that out. And I think that what you're talking about, your peer groups, and that's why I like about the traditional 20 group concept, is that you're putting yourself in a group of 20 people like-minded. You're not comparing yourself to the other million. You're in a room and you're comparing yourself to those 20 because they're just like you. And now you're able to talk and bounce ideas off each other and understand where they're at, where you're at, and then kind of find ways to fix problems and, grow your business.
Yeah. I think it's age and stage. So position, age, and stage is critical. And I think you can have a great event, but if the people can't relate at the event, or you can have an ongoing meeting group, but even if it's on your management team, it's just, how do you create, if you go back to your restaurant, if there's a common goal that we're united around achieving, whether, and again, profitability, costs are a result of a consistent human behavior. So marketing, behavior leading into an experience in the restaurant that leads to profitability and cost. But what we saw, I've had a chance to do a bunch of talks recently, and whether it's in the US or Canada, the number one thing that's going to bring people back to your restaurant as we go through the months ahead is the experience that you create, like the statistics. So there's more choice, but how do we create an experience, whether it's quick service or fine dining, whatever that experience looks like, so that meets the needs and expectations of your core guest avatar. And there's not one avatar, there's a few. It's a bigger conversation, but how do we meet the needs of our guests consistently? And then how do we celebrate? The industry's been taught, say, what's the gap? What did we not do? But what we're working on with so many clients, how do we have a recognition-based culture, a genuine one, like you're doing with Red Bulls and ping pong tables and fun. And it's not about the Red Bull or ping pong table. It's that people like to be in that room with those people because they like Red Bull and ping pong. And they also like to deliver on sales results. In the restaurant, how do we need people that want to create an experience? We want people that are going to deliver what you want. They'll get joy. The guests will come back, and we have a sustainable business. It sounds simple, but we got to go do the work.
Ironic you said that. Is this morning we have a Facebook group that we've had for a while, but we've never grown it. We just started pushing it the last couple months, called America's Best Restaurants Owners and Operators Only Group. And there's a couple vendors in there. So if you want to join, I'll let you in because I trust you. I know you'll drop value in there. But one of the guys this morning from a restaurant called Zupaman shared a video talking about customer service. And he said, Nobody's ever got home from a restaurant and said, you know what, I'm never going back there. The service was too good.
Yep,
And
never. Yep, no matter the price.
Yeah. It's the experience, it's the service. And I think we've got to keep an eye on quality, keep an eye on being great. And I think that, your mindset is the key to that, that you've got to get your mind right, understand that there's a lot of opportunity out there. There's always negative, but there's always a lot of positive. When I told a restaurant the other day, I said, what excites me the most when I hear a restaurant owner, like I did that local one here in Cincinnati, say, we're going to kind of pull back and wait. It's like, wow, that's great. Cause I'm going to find a person that's going to not pull back and they're going to take your market share, because that's what's going to happen. So
I think we should link the Nick Saban video. I'm sure you've seen it with Get Your Mind Right. Like that's a video we show all the time, right? And it's one that I play when I'm up. But it's about, again, that mental state. But it's proven in sport and sports psychology is how do we get our mind right so we can show up and do the things that we can do. Sometimes shit's in the way, but a lot of time it's not. We just got to get ourselves right and focused on what we need to.
So this is the best place to find you, to find this book, right? And then to find out how to work with you.
Yeah. So the best place is mattrolfe.com, ROLFE. We got all of our coaching insights there. We've got a huge event coming up in Toronto where we've got 180 leaders, but that's just a springboard event to a series of workshops across North America. And Matt, when we get across the border, can't wait to be doing that with you and just bringing value back to the industry. Again, with clear strategy, we can do great things. But if you go on the website, you'll learn more about me. You like the book. We've had a great response to the book. It's been overwhelming. Yeah. But just appreciate the space to be on your platform and how much work it takes to create an audience. So thank you for the opportunity. And I hope we're helping the industry, helping one person out there do better.
That's all you got to do. One person at a time. I appreciate you being on, Matt.
Thanks, man. Thank you.